Alrighty, and hello there, everyone. Welcome back. We are back again for take 2 of Starship Flight 10. Yesterday, they had to scrub due to some issues with the ground systems. Elon Musk had tweeted out something saying that there was like a liquid oxygen leak or something on the ground system. So, nothing wrong with the ship. Something wrong with the ground system itself. So it's good to know the ship was in good shape. It didn't have to destack anything, take it back to the factory and fix it or anything. So everything is good to go, and they are clear to launch in T-minus 43 minutes. So it actually seems like there's been a little bit of a delay, unless I need to refresh my page here, which I might need to. Nope, there may have been a delay. They may have pushed it back a little bit for whatever reason. They had extra time to prepare for the launch and stuff. So, because we were supposed to take off here in like the next 15 minutes here. I'm Eastern time, so it would be 7:30 for me, but 6:30 Central time. But it looks like they have pushed it back slightly, so we are now T-minus 42 minutes. But hey, that's not going to stop us. We're going to stay along for the ride, and hopefully they do not scrub again today. Hopefully everything goes off without a hitch, and we can see this thing fly. Let's just get right into it here. Let me look over here. Let's check out the comments a little bit, see what's going on, and see if anyone's with us yet. Does not look like we have anyone in the comments quite yet. Let's just leave a little comment here. I'll leave the first comment on the stream. It's okay, guys. I also apologize if you hear the dogs fighting in the background. So, as you can see, I've kind of changed the layout here. The background's slightly changed up. It's still not completely organized and stuff. I've got pictures and stuff sitting here that need to be hung up and everything. But I've reorganized a little bit here in the room, just to kind of change things up. This is going to be a more permanent setup. I'm trying to putting together kind of a makeshift like studio. It's a very small room that I'm sitting in, but it's what I've got. It's the only room in the house that's available for my YouTube content. So I hope you guys enjoy what I'm doing back here. I want to change it up, leave little like Easter eggs and stuff in the background every now and then. But I think it's going to be a much better setup than what I was working with, because I think some of my last live streams, it was like desk behind me and 3D printer and stuff. So just kind of cleaning it up behind me. I might open up the blinds behind me and let some natural light in from time to time. We'll see. We will see. But with that being said, actually, did I finish typing my comment? I may have gotten sidetracked. Oh, Dan was the first comment. He beat me. He beat me to the first comment before I could finish typing my first comment. Man. But obviously, Dan, welcome to the stream. I hope we are in for a good launch today. I hope everything goes off without a hitch and everything works the way it's supposed to. Let's go in here. Going to do some refresh. Alright, so SpaceX is live. We actually have Elon Musk that is live right now. That's kind of crazy, actually. Let's refresh this real quick. Nice. And then I want to make sure that we're getting audio out here, because I do want to pull this up and listen to this. Shoot. Let's go full screen with this. All right. Let's see what Elon Musk himself has to say. That did not do what I wanted it to do. It took out my full screen. There we go.
That's kind of the
I'm hoping you guys can hear
defensive
this.
aspect, or life insurance for life collectively.
I don't know what that sounds
but then
like,
there's
to be
also
honest.
there also need to be things that are
I'm gonna turn
inspiring
that down
and
a little bit, 'cause
exciting,
it looks loud on
and
my
that
end. I can't
give
hear
you
it.
reason to live.
My audio
Life cannot
monitoring
just be
feature is
about
not turned on.
solving one tragic problem after another. There must be also reasons to get up in the morning and be excited about the future. And a future where we are a spacefaring civilization is infinitely more exciting than one where we are not.
And we're doing it all pretty unique location. I mean, the pad's behind us. We got rocket on the tower. We got another tower with it. We're sitting inside Star Factory. And I mean, it wasn't like this for
I
very
think this
long.
is the
This is all
first
pretty
time
brand
I've
new.
ever seen Elon
Yeah, I
Musk
think we
in
moved
one of the
Starship
streams
here
for
in about
SpaceX.
the early part
This
of
is kinda
2019.
wild.
So we've been coming that entire time and seeing the site evolve from a double wide trailer and a tent where we built Starhopper to the first suborbital test flights. And now we have behind
I
us
have
two
no idea what they were
towers for the
talking about
first
before
time.
this.
As we
I
build
might want to
towards the
rewind.
first
They're like
operational
T-minus
flight from the
38
second
minutes, so there's no
tower at the
telling,
end of
like-
this year. And this beautiful building, 1,000,000 square feet, where we're able to work towards a production line of Starships.
Yeah, the SpaceX team has done an incredible job of building out really the most advanced rocket manufacturing facility that has ever existed. This is far beyond any rocket fabrication facility that has ever been built. This is essentially alien level technology, and it was all built here, basically down by the Rio Grande River and close to the beach. It's an incredibly improbable location, and this used to be a sandbar. I think we're about 3 feet or about a meter above sea level.
There's some views of the new
so,
Super Heavy. You can see the Super
it
Heavy
really
grid
was
fins
nothing.
for
If you
version
see the
3
time
Super
lapse
Heavy, as well as the new
from,
grid fin. Or did I say
sandbar
grid fins?
to,
the new grid fins, as well as the new hot
two
staging
two
ring
launch
for
towers,
the new Super Heavy
and
booster
a
V3.
gigantic rocket factory with high bays. And we're going to be building something called the Gigabay, which is like one of the largest enclosed volumes on Earth. So it's sort of like a gigantic Borg cube that we're going to be building here for building and storing these gigantic rockets. It's really spectacular, and anyone can come and visit. So because we're on a public highway, and we're literally by a public beach, you can actually come and see the rocket. You quite close up. I mean, you can drive past it, and you can also look at the factory. And anyone could do this from anywhere in the world. So if you can come and visit and check it out. So I think it's pretty cool that it's
Just not right now.
just not right now.
Just not right
Obviously
now.
not when we're launching because there's some safety issues. But the rocket's often just sitting on the pad without any propellant in it, and then you can just come here and visit. It's very easy.
Yeah, I think it's a really special place. Yesterday, the ship went down the road behind us, and I saw families outside on Sunday going for their Sunday stroll, and they were greeted by Starship going down. And I think that from the very beginning, the thing about Starship, different than Falcon and other rockets that I'm aware of, is we designed it to be mass-produced and mass-produced at scale. And it's not about building one Starship and getting to orbit once. It's about doing it in a sustained and rapid way.
Yeah, we're aiming for ultimately thousands of ships to be built per year, which is what's needed in order to construct a city on Mars that is self-sustaining. And the major fork in the road of destiny will be when the Mars city is capable of surviving, even if the resupply ships from Earth stop coming for any reason. And that reason could be something cataclysmic, or it could be that that civilization simply subsided. There's always this debate throughout history of will civilization end with a bang or a whimper. But either way, if the critical thing is to get to the point where Mars is self-sustaining and can survive even if the resupply ships stop coming for any reason, which means that you need to build an entire base of industry on Mars in order for Mars to survive. For example, it's not simply enough to build a chip, like a computer chip factory, but you need the ability to build computer chip factories. So this is going to really take a lot of tonnage.
All right, I'm going to mute that for just a moment. It's been kind of awkward silence on my end here. I'm just trying to listen. It sounds like Elon is just kind of hyping up Starship. I don't think there's anything really technical being announced at the moment. So we'll leave the pretty views of Starship up here for you guys to watch. I'm blocking, my camera is blocking the countdown in the corner, but we are T-minus 34 minutes out from launch. But so let's talk a little bit about this here. The launch coming up. I'm hoping that while he's muted, he doesn't like drop any like earth-shattering updates about Starship. It sounds like he's just hyping it up, but I'm honestly like very surprised to see Elon even in the stream to start with. So, well, I'm not sure what he's doing here, or if maybe he gave some updates on stuff earlier and we missed it because I was yapping, or what happened there. But let's talk about. Yeah, I'm really afraid to like mute this. I want to make sure I'm not missing any important information from Elon here.
Earth's existence.
Or blip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Flash in the pan so far.
Yeah. Well, we're getting some cool shots. Rocket out on the pad right now. We tell people, like, come down, see it. It's hard to get like a sense of scale of just how massive this thing is. And we were able to catch somebody working on it a little while ago. And like part of the reason you said we're sending millions of tons, that's kind of why this
When
thing
I
is
think
as
in this
massive as
image,
it
Dan, you
is.
can actually see the person working at the bottom of the ship, and as we zoom out, you see the full ship, that sort of two-tone silver and black, and then the booster below it, right? And it really sets the scale, which doesn't come across, I think, other than in person. And when I do tours, I like to say Starship is real, Starship is big, and Starship is really big. And I think you can see there, and with the factory shots you saw earlier, again, we've got Flight 10 on the pad, but we got many more behind it.
Yeah, so I posted a video yesterday of just a brief scan of part of the Starship factory, and you can get a sense of the scale of the factory. Yeah, I guess we could talk a bit about why Starship is the way it is. Like, for example, why is half of the ship black and half of it is silver colored? And that's because the bottom half of the ship, the bottom as seen from orbital entry, has a heat shield on it. So the black there is the heat shield, and then the core structure of the rocket is a special alloy of stainless steel, and that's where you see the sort of shiny silver parts are stainless steel. The reason for steel over aluminum is that the heat of atmospheric entry and the heat of the rocket engines is enough to easily melt.
All right, I don't think he's actually giving anything, but I think he's literally just commentating along with everyone else today. So that's interesting to see. But I'll leave the Starship views up here, the pretty views, and I'm going to go back and look at the website here. And let's just look over some of the details here, because pretty much everything about this flight is going to be completely identical to Flight 9, which I was able to capture in person back in May. If you guys recall my absolute freak out watching this thing launch for the first time with my own eyes. Oh, that's a cool view of the Raptor fighting right there. But pretty much a lot of stuff here is going to be the same as Flight 9. I think they're going to try maybe something a little bit different with the booster. The booster flying on this flight is Booster 16. Last time it was Booster 14 flying for the second time. The first ever Super Heavy booster to be reflown for the first time. And so this is a new booster on the pad, but they can't keep it because new boosters are on the way. I'm pretty sure, I want to say that very next flight after this is going to be the first flight of Super Heavy V3, which is next generation, updated hot stage ring, updated grid fin layout, updated grid fins. You saw some of the clips there a little bit earlier when they were going through some of the B-roll playing over Elon talking. Bigger, better booster. First flight with the Raptor 3 engines, I believe. I think Starship V2 is supposed to use Raptor 3 engines as well, but they've been using the Raptor V2 engines on Starship V2 just because Raptor 3 hasn't been ready. And I've kind of theorized in the past that maybe Starship has had the issues that it's had because the engines aren't necessarily compatible. Because V2 was specifically designed, I shouldn't say specifically, but V2 was designed to use Raptor 3. And so I've kind of theorized in the past that some of the issues it's been facing is because it's using these older engines that might behave differently than what Raptor 3 does. So, not completely sure. I don't want to be a man of skepticism and speculating on everything. Or, I don't want to be a man of speculation. That's the word I meant to say. But there's just been some things. The way SpaceX rushes through their testing programs, I'm sure there's reasons there as to why these past couple flights have been so weird with the failures and stuff. Because we were on a really good track record. Like, we were seeing progression with every single flight up until Flight 6. And then after Flight 6 happened, we've kind of been on like a nosedive in terms of how much Starship has progressed in its testing. Because if you recall, back in May, And my camera just turned itself off. That's awesome. It went into sleep mode, I believe. All right, we're back. But if you recall, Flight 7 and Flight 8 were kind of big milestone flights. I believe it was test Starship V2, get it through reentry on Flight 7, and then on Flight 8, test it again, splash down in the Indian Ocean again to make sure that Flight 7 wasn't a fluke. And then Flight 9 was supposed to be the first ever catch of a Starship with Mechazilla, the chopstick arms on the tower. And that was kind of what I was looking forward to with Flight 9, was being able to see the first ever ship catch, because it's one thing to catch a booster out of the air. SpaceX has already demonstrated they can land a Falcon 9 booster with pinpoint precision on a drone ship out in the middle of the ocean, and they can bring it back to land and land it with pinpoint precision. But then bringing the booster back and being able to be even more precise, getting it back into the arms of the chopsticks to catch it out of the air, removing all of the heavy landing hardware that the Falcon 9 has. That's one thing that's really cool to see. But taking an orbital vehicle, something that's traveling 17,000 miles an hour, slowing it down to the point where it can just really slowly and gradually float back down and then flip vertical and glide itself, or I wouldn't know, it's not glide, but kind of coast itself back into the arms of the launch tower. That is a sight to see. Like, that is going to be the most insane thing ever to see happen. So I'm really looking forward to it. And if their SpaceX is still on their current plan, where they want to get ship V2 through reentry twice before doing the catch, we're behind now because we're up to Flight 10 now. We still haven't even gotten through reentry once with the ship. So I'm really hoping that everything is going to go off without a hitch today. We can see this thing get through reentry properly, because the last flight made it to engine shutdown. It was supposed to deploy some Starlink simulators. Starlink simulators failed to deploy. And then right after that, it kind of lost attitude control, and so the ship just started spiraling out of control. And then it started to re-enter while it was spinning out of control. So it was not a controlled re-entry. It burnt up really early on, and we lost contact with the ship. So I'm hoping that they've got it all fixed. We're going to get this thing through re-entry on the first try. And, well, it's not going to be the first try anymore. It's going to be like the fourth try. But we're going to get through re-entry today, and then they will be able to take all the data they've gathered from this flight and send the next one through re-entry with no problem. And then Flight 12, theoretically, should be that first ever catch of a Starship vehicle on the tower. And if that happens for Flight 12, I think I'm going to make it a point to go back down to Texas to see this happen, because that's something you cannot miss with your own eyes. Like, it is absolutely 100% a historical event that will take place on Flight 12 if they can make it. If they can get to their goal by Flight 12 and there's no failures here on this flight. They're actually showing here in this clip here, showing the ship come down and get caught by the arms. So this is kind of a visualization of what I was talking about, what they're attempting to do, bringing it back down, catching it with the arms. Like, that is just absolutely insane. Because this is not a booster that flies up and then turns itself around and comes back down. This thing's going to do a full orbit around the Earth and come back screaming in at 17,000 miles an hour. Use the atmosphere to bleed off as much energy as possible. And then it's just going to very slowly and gracefully glide back down to the launch site. So I've got to see it with my own eyes. I'm really hoping that they can get this, figured out. So Flight 12, we can see this thing come back to the launch site for the first time. But before I went on my rant there, like I was saying, a lot of the stuff on this flight is going to be very similar, because Flight 7, Flight 8, Flight 9, we're all trying to achieve the exact same objectives, because Flight 7 failed, so Flight 8 had to try to do what Flight 7 was doing, and then Flight 8 failed, so Flight 9 tried to do what Flight 8 was doing, so on and so forth. So we are still trying to complete the objectives that the previous flights were trying to complete. This ship has 8 Starlink simulators on board today to demonstrate the payload deployment system built into the Starship. The big thing that Starship is going to be used for, I think, when it first becomes operational, is going to be Starlink version 3. They are bigger satellites are going to have more bandwidth, I'm assuming, higher capacity for more users to ping off of it at once. So it's just going to further expand the speeds and the usability of Starlink in the future. And so that's kind of the big push to get Starship operational, so they can start putting up these new generation Starlink satellites into orbit to continue making Starlink a better and better service, which I personally own a Starlink dish. I used it for the Starship stream back in May when I was down in Texas, and I think it worked pretty well. There were some jumpy bits there, but I think it's because I didn't have the dish properly aligned. I didn't go through the alignment process when I fired everything up. I just kind of popped off the tripod and set it down and let it connect to the internet. So that's probably why my speeds weren't as optimal as they could have been. But it just using it on like the highway, I'm getting 80 megabits a second down. Like insane download speeds for driving down the highway at like 70, 80 miles an hour. So it's only going to get better from here. And that's why I'm looking forward to Starship becoming operational, because I'm excited to see how much better Starlink is going to get in the future here. But we need Starship to do it. So if Starship doesn't get better, Starlink cannot get better unless they find an alternative method to put those bigger satellites up. Because the Starlink V3 satellites are specifically designed to be carried by Starship, so they do not fit into the fairings of a Falcon 9. I believe Starlink V2 was supposed to be bigger and launched on Starship, but due to the delays they have faced with Starship, they had to make a mini version. So there's Starlink V2 Mini that's being launched into orbit by Falcon 9. And that's kind of their current process now to continue increasing the speeds and making Starlink better, is just taking a smaller version of what they ultimately wanted to put up there and launching on Falcon 9. But V3 cannot be miniaturized. I think there's too many sacrifices to be made if they miniaturize it, so they need Starship for that. With that ramble over, so 8 Starlink satellite simulators on board. They had 8 on board Flight 9 as well, but the payload bay door failed to open up to deploy the satellites in the last flight. So hoping to see that happen today, see those Starlink deploys, those Starlink satellites get deployed. And obviously they're simulators, so they're not actually going to work. They're not actually going to do anything. The reason they are simulators and not actual satellites is because Starship is not going into a full orbit today. It's going to go pretty close to orbit. It's going to be just under the speed required to achieve a full orbit. But because Starship is not a fully proven vehicle, if for whatever reason their Raptor relight test to demonstrate a deorbit burn fails, they don't want this thing getting stuck up there, because it's a massive piece of space debris to get stuck up there. And so it's going to be a suborbital trajectory, but it's going to be like right there close to almost being in orbit, just because they want the speeds to be fast enough they can still demonstrate the heating that Starship will experience on reentry, but they don't want to go so the trade-offs here, they don't want to go into a full orbit because they don't want to get stuck, but they don't want to go too slow, because if they go too slow, then they're not going to get the peak heating that Starship will experience in actual operational status. So it's like right there on the line of orbit, but not quite. So the Starlink simulators are going to burn up on reentry as well as Starship reenters. Hopefully Starship doesn't burn up on reentry, because it's kind of designed to not do that. But the simulators will burn up on reentry. There will be no space junk left behind on this flight, thankfully. So I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing that happen. But after those simulators are deployed, we're going to see Starship hopefully flip itself around and point itself backwards. It's going to light up a single Raptor engine to demonstrate a deorbit burn. And then from there, it's going to orient itself for reentry. You're going to see those flaps open up. It's just going to smack itself right into the atmosphere to slow itself down. A really cool thing about Starship is that it acts kind of like the space shuttle. It's just taking like its full, I forget the full cross section of Starship, and just hitting it right against the atmosphere. So you have a very blunt, lot of surface area on the belly of the ship, and that's just going to help bleed off tons of energy without them using any fuel whatsoever on reentry. Whereas, like, say for example, Falcon 9 coming in for reentry has to do a reentry burn to slow itself down so it doesn't get too hot on reentry. So Starship doesn't have to use any fuel on reentry. It's just going to use literally its belly as all that surface area that it's got to slow itself down, which is an awesome design for a fully reusable vehicle, because you really want to maximize your fuel. You want to save that. You don't want to use that fuel to come back to Earth. You want to use that fuel to push as much payload into orbit as possible. And so the design of Starship allows them to maximize how much fuel they can use to push a payload into orbit compared to how much fuel they need to come back home. And so that's kind of, from the Starship side of things, the rundown of everything. We're going to see a lot of the norms. You'll see Starship go up, hot stage, booster will flip and come back. And then after engine cutoff is as far as we have gotten so far with Starship V2. So everything after engine cutoff is going to be new for Starship V2, and I'm hoping that we'll see everything successfully go off without a hitch. I actually got scared there for a second. It says previous flight. I glance over and I see it launch, and I'm like, what did I just miss? But you're seeing it here as I'm talking about it. It's funny how SpaceX pulls the... I promise I'm not controlling the SpaceX stream, guys. They just happen to be showing this B-roll right as I'm talking about it. But it's going to get to engine cutoff, and we will hopefully see all of these new events that we have not been able to see yet take place on a Starship V2 flight happen. With the booster, they're doing stuff very similar to what they did with the previous flight with Booster 14. They're bringing it in kind of at a much, I want to say it's like a sharper angle. They're bringing it in basically a lot faster with a lot more dynamic pressure on the vehicle and stuff, just to really test its limits and see like how... Do I have like a... I have this chip clip sitting on my desk here. So this chip clip, imagine upright here, this is the booster just sitting on the pad. And then, they're going to go up, and then you'll have your separation. Booster will flip around, do its burn to come back to Earth. But when it does its boost back burn to come back to the launch pad, it's not fully, its trajectory is not fully like directly over the launch pad. It still has quite a ways to go. And so the plan is to use the entire cross-section of the booster as almost like a lifting body. A lifting body is like a giant wing, essentially. And the booster is going to make itself... It's almost going to lay completely flat. Like it's a very, very sharp angle of descent. Very, very steep that it comes in. And so the whole purpose of that is to allow the booster to glide itself back. So they're using a lot more aerodynamic properties, much like Starship coming back on a reentry, where they're not using any fuel to reenter. Super Heavy is using its aerodynamics to allow it to use less fuel to come back home as well. And so that further goes into saving all of that fuel to push heavier payloads into orbit. So what they're doing with Booster 16 is essentially pushing it to the limits to see how sharp their descent, how steep they can have their descent come in. Like, can they lay this thing flat on its back and keep it going, or like when do they lose control with the booster? There's just a lot of things there with the aerodynamics of the booster that they want to test to see where it breaks at and how far they can push it on re-entry to get it back home and save as much fuel as possible with its return to the launch site. So we will expect to see that probably. I don't know how much you'll really notice it with the camera angles and stuff, if you're really gonna like visibly see like, dang, that thing is like coming in, like it's like almost laying on its back essentially, or what they're gonna do with it. But another thing they're gonna do with the booster, I believe they did this on Booster 14 as well in the last flight on Flight 9. They're going to demonstrate engine failure abilities. So typically when Super Heavy comes in for landing, all three of the center engines on Super Heavy will relight to slow it down for landing. But let's say in the event that one of those three center engines do not work anymore after it comes back, they're going to test relighting one of the engines from the outer ring outside of the three center engines to kind of compensate for the third engine in the center not working. And so They're going to demonstrate that today. They're going to intentionally shut down one of the 3 center engines to force Super Heavy to light up one of those engines along the inner ring to slow it down and get it to splash down in the Gulf. I'm going to call it the Gulf because no controversy here. We're just going to call it the Gulf. But it will splash down out in the Gulf, and that will be the demise of Booster 16. I'm pretty sure it's going to be a hard splashdown, much like Booster 14 would have had. Booster 14 actually blew up like right before. Actually, you saw engine relight with Booster 14, and then as soon as the engines relit, the thing exploded before it could even like slow itself down and splash down. So if Booster 16 can make it all the way down to the water without blowing up like Booster 14 did, you're going to see Booster 16 do a hard splashdown, and then it will blow up because it's going to hit the water too hard. But now that my rambling's over, they've got a robot on there. I don't know what they're talking about now. I can unmute the stream here. We can see what they're talking about. But now that my ramble's over, that's kind of what to expect today. I hope you guys... I know it's kind of like drinking from a fire hose right there. But I hope you guys were able to kind of get that information into your heads and understand like what I'm talking about. And so a lot of things to look forward to this flight, but it's also going to look very similar to Flight 9. I want to be excited for this flight, but obviously we've had so many failures on the past 3 flights that it kind of... My optimism is less, but my optimism is also still like, I'm optimistic that SpaceX is figuring out the problems on the previous flights, and they're figuring out solutions to fix the problems so we can like actually see progress with Starship. But I don't want to get my hopes up, because just as soon as I get my hopes up, something bad's going to happen. So without further ado, I might unmute the stream here. Let's look at the chat. Let's check out the chat real quick, see if anything's going on. Dan says Super Heavy is kind of like gliding. Oh no, I think he's talking about Starship. It's kind of like gliding. It's more like a Buzz Lightyear, falling with style. That is indeed correct. The Starship is kind of very gracefully comes in belly first. I never got to see any of the suborbital test flights where they were just testing the ship and the belly flop maneuver and like the aerodynamic control for those early flights. But everyone who described it said that it was like extremely slow. It looked like it was like barely falling. It was like so slowly, gracefully falling back down that like it just kind of like was almost hanging there, suspended in midair. And so it's very much falling with style. Starship it is amazing what they're able to do with that, just using like the aerodynamics alone of the vehicle to bring it back home. But with that being said, let us unmute the stream here. I think they're actually talking about Starlink right now. Yeah, they're talking about Starlink. Let's unmute here and see what they got to say about that.
Which is a fancy way of describing an antenna that's made up of many little antennas that work together in order to direct their energy to a specific spot on the ground without a motor.
Generally, satellite manufacturing is a very slow process. It takes people weeks or months to build a satellite. At SpaceX, we iterate very fast, and we have learned how to build satellites at the 70 sats a week rate.
Holy crap.
As we have focused a lot on production
70
rate, we
satellites a
have
week.
not forgotten about our satellite reliability, which is critical to our mission.
If you look at the whole world and you ask, where is the satellite industry? It's right here in the USA, in Redmond, where the vast
They're building
majority of
70
satellites
Starlink
being
satellites a
built
week.
are
That is
being
absolutely
built right
insane.
now. Starlink is a truly game-changing technology, and it's all supported by the global satellite constellation from this space here in Redmond. And we're really just getting started at the very beginning of what we want to do with Starlink.
Wow.
Now, as we mentioned earlier in the show, one of today's objectives is for SHIP to deploy Starlink simulator satellites that represent the advanced V3 satellites Starship will be launching in the future. And as you can see here, once Starship reaches a nominal orbit, the payload door will slowly begin to open to prepare for deployment. The Starlink satellites will be dispatched relatively quickly, one at a time, very much like a Pez dispenser. They'll be situated in one long stack, taking up as little space as possible, allowing for an efficient deployment sequence. And once a set of Starlinks is deployed, the next set advances and deploys until they are all drifting away from Starship to prepare for their on-orbit life. Each Starlink V3 launch on Starship is planned to add 60 terabits per second of capacity to the Starlink network. That's more than 20 times the capacity added with every V2 mini launch on Falcon 9. So we're talking about a massive increase in performance all around, which will ultimately enable Starlink to serve as the communications backbone of the missions to the moon and to Mars. But for now, we're going to turn it back over to the team at Starbase. Hey, Dan and Amanda.
Hey, thanks, Taylor. So, quick update for everybody. So weather's still the main thing that we're watching. We are currently red on the range, hoping to clear that Anvil rule any moment now. That's really the only thing blocking us at the moment. Vehicle's good, pads ready to go. All of our checkouts have been really smooth today after that repair work that we did this morning after we had to abort out yesterday. So we're looking at the weather. That's the thing we're really paying attention to right now.
Meanwhile, prop load is still ongoing. We started loading prop at about T-minus 53 minutes, beginning with ship fuel, ship blocks, booster fuel, and finally booster locks began loading at about T-minus 35. We'll continue loading prop until just about 3 minutes before liftoff, and ship will conclude first, and then 30 seconds later, booster will finish up.
Yeah, so bottom line, we're looking great in the vehicle. We're looking really good on the range. We're just really watching that weather. So we're still waiting to hear that that's clear. That's the only thing that could potentially stop us today.
Okay,
Yikes.
now
Big
let's talk
yikes.
about Mars, since everything we do is part of our foundational mission to get to the Red Planet. Each Starship launch is to learn more and more about what's needed to make life multiplanetary and to improve ship to the point where it's eventually taking millions of people to Mars.
That's right. We're looking ahead to begin sending the first Starships to Mars next year. These initial ones are going to go without humans. They're just going to put minimally viable landers on the surface, land right in the skirt, no legs. This will just help prove we can actually get to Mars, focus on learning just as much as humanly possible, demonstrating what's needed for Mars transit and the ultimate landing.
Then, during our next window from 2028 to 2029, we'll attempt to land the initial infrastructure and start delivering more equipment while evaluating available resources on the planet. And we'll also have Optimus on board for the ride, designed to do the initial heavy lifting.
Beyond that, by 2030, 2031, as these windows open up roughly every 26 months, we'll continue to increase the amount of payload we're sending on each ship as we're building out more infrastructure, mining resources, generating propellant for ships to come back from Mars. By 2033, we want to double the amount of payload per ship as we just get closer and closer to building a self-sustaining presence on the Red Planet.
Yeah, very exciting missions ahead, and these first missions to Mars are going to be crucial to setting up what we'll need for humans to eventually inhabit the planet, and we won't be doing this alone.
Right.
The Italian Space Agency and SpaceX recently signed a first-of-its-kind agreement to carry Italian experiments on the first Starship missions to deliver customer payloads to Mars. These payloads will include a plant growth experiment, a weather monitoring station, and a radiation sensor to gather scientific data during Starship's approximately 6-month interplanetary coast phase from Earth to Mars and also on the Martian surface.
It's a really exciting vision. To make it happen, we're going to need to launch a whole lot more. We're going to need a whole lot of people that are going to come and help us build this. So it makes it really fun for me to come to work. I know you build these things.
100%.
It's got to be fun for you.
Yep, very exciting.
All right.
Looks like we're about 5 minutes from Starship's 10th flight test. Range is still looking good, still have an eye on the weather at the moment, and prop load is also continuing on both stages of Starship.
Yeah, I'm pulling it up real quick. So we are we're almost closed out on the booster. We're about 90% on fuel.
All right. So, very optimistic views here for Mars. Hearing their description that they just gave, I was very very skeptic about if they were actually going to be able to send Starship to Mars next year during this next launch window. But hearing what they're going to do, like they're literally just sending a bare bones ship out there. It sounds like what's sitting on the pad right now, that is what would go to Mars. Very bare bones, nothing really on board. They just want to send it there to see if it's possible and see if they can do it. So that's going to be very interesting. I think that's achievable if they can, especially if they can get it working. Like, obviously these past couple of flights have not been good, but they can get this thing working by the end of the year, and it's like starting to be consistent with its flights and stuff. I think we could definitely see this thing go to Mars in a bare bones format next year. Maybe by like the end of next year, maybe like November, December, I could see it going out there, which would be really neat to see. But it sounds like everything's going good. Ship looks good. The only thing they were watching is weather. So they were talking about the anvil rule, which very high altitude clouds. They don't want, there's certain rules about flying through those upper level cloud layers there. I forget the exact reason, but I know that there's a rule there about it. And you can see the anvil overspreading the launch site there, that very dark cloud behind the ship. So we will see if they get the go to the launch here, which they may have already said that it's go, or like weather is go, but I have it muted right now, so you guys can't hear it. But everything's looking good to go. I am intrigued to see what they do with Mars, because I think that's definitely possible, just sending a bare bones ship out there to land it right on its skirt and see if they can even do it. It'll probably tip over afterwards. I don't see it successfully like just landing upright. But if they can just get it to like softly touch down before falling over and blowing up, that would be pretty cool to see. The thing that I will be skeptic about is the next launch window in 2028, 2029, where they're saying they're going to start sending infrastructure out there and the Optimus robot that Tesla's developing. That I am not super sure about, because I don't think they've even started doing, which SpaceX might be doing stuff behind the scenes we have no idea about, but I don't know how much research has actually gone into like the infrastructure and equipment that needs to go out there before humans go, because the whole purpose of the Optimus flights, like sending the robots out there first, is for them to set things up and prep it for the arrival of humans. And so I'm not sure how much research has been put into it to like know like what needs to go out there. They haven't like, which we still got, there's 4 years to go, so who knows like what they're going to do between now and then. But if you guys get what I'm saying, I just don't think that I don't know how much thought's been put into it for them to be able to hit that goal of 2028, 2029, sending robots and infrastructure out there to Mars. But next year, if everything can get sorted out by the end of this year and it's working consistently the way it's supposed to, I could see them sending a bare bones Starship to Mars next year. That's very much a possibility, I feel like. So we are now 1 minute and 30 seconds into this. Let us unmute and listen in here in our last little bit. See if they put us into a hold or pause the count and everything. Hopefully they don't, but we'll listen in and see what they're saying. Did I unmute? I did not unmute.
So at this rate, looking likely we will hold at T-minus 40 to see if we can clear that anvil cloud roll. That's the one blocker we currently have to a launch today.
Yikes.
All right, and we did just get confirmation, so we are expecting to hold at T-minus 40. We are still red on the range for weather, so look for the clock to pause in just a couple seconds. And pause. So we'll hang out here for a couple of minutes. We do have until the end of the window. We won't have 30 minutes of hold time to hang out, as we're essentially not replenishing prop on the vehicle at this point, so we have to keep a close eye on things like temperatures inside the tanks. We can only hold for so many minutes before things start to warm up. Surprised it's hot in South Texas.
Yeah, while we're holding here at T-minus 40 seconds, we reviewed our test objectives for booster, but why don't we chat ship for a second? After stage separation, ship will continue onwards up through its ascent to the planned suborbital trajectory. Once it reaches there, we'll undergo SECO, or where the second stage shuts off its engines. We're hoping to deploy 8 dummy satellites today, which are modeled after Starlink V2. We're also planning to attempt a in-orbit burn, so we'll relight one of those Raptor engines while in space, and that will occur ahead of re-entry, where we'll also be testing multiple experiments, including missing tiles, metallic tiles, and intentionally loading those vehicles' flaps. And then hopefully we'll conclude today's test flight with a soft splashdown in the Indian Ocean.
Yeah, definitely want to see a ship on the other side of the planet today. We did just get a quick update. So the range is fully green. Weather is still red.
We're green.
So
we're
still
green.
tracking
Range is
its
green.
attached anvil rule, which essentially there's an anvil cloud that's too close to our launch site, and it needs to move further away. Until it moves further away, we can't lift off. So we are expecting an update in a couple of seconds, potentially. Again, we can hang out here for several minutes. We're not actively replenishing prop. And getting an update now. And we're getting a weather update right now.
The suspense, it builds. How much suspense should there be?
Team's looking at it. Again, we're just tracking this anvil rule still. It's our only blocker today. Range is green, vehicle is green. Weather is currently red.
Darn clouds, man.
All right, and sad voice coming in. We did just hear that we are still going to be red. So at this point, we are essentially transitioning this to be a wet dress. So wet dress is when we fully load prop on board the rocket. So we are going to see the clock probably start up again. But once they get down to 10 seconds, they're going to abort out, and then we will be done for the day. So, sad news, not going to launch today. Weather got in our way, but you can only control so much. Can't always control the weather. Can't control the weather. I wish we could control the weather. We're not there yet.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Wouldn't that be nice? So we are seeing the clock rolling, but again, we're going to get down to T-minus 10 seconds, and we're going to see that kick back out. And then we're going to start offloading all of the propellant that's on board the rocket today. So if you are just tuning in.
Oh no, we accidentally. Oh no, we accidentally hit the button and let it go anyways. Sorry guys, didn't mean to do that. Anyways, that looks like that's gonna wrap things up here. Unfortunately, the weather got in the way. Yesterday it was a ground systems issue. Today it is a weather issue. The weather is getting in the way of this, so never a Starship issue, surprisingly enough. Well, I take that back. Flight 8 was a Starship issue. They had to destack the vehicle and take it back to the build site to fix stuff on it. But it is very rarely ever a Starship issue when these things scrub. It is very, very interesting to see, I guess, just how reliable it has been, and from a liftoff standpoint. Like, I don't think we've ever had an engine abort on Starship, like the orbital flights. Like, this thing just goes. They hit zero and it just goes. So it's really neat to see how reliable it has gotten from the liftoff standpoint. But unfortunately, everything else ruins our fun and gets in the way. So there goes the SpaceX stream, closing it out. They got cool views of Mars now in the outro. I wonder how recent that's been. I probably haven't paid any attention. It's been there the whole time. But those are our Mars views. SpaceX closing out their stream. Let's go ahead and check out our comments here. Dan says, we want scrubs, not RUDs, right? That is correct. That is very correct. We do not want to see any rapid, unscheduled disassemblies of this. I would rather them scrub than put the ship at risk, but it is very sad to see a scrub. So we will see. I'm assuming, depending on what the weather looks like tomorrow, they're going to try again tomorrow once again. So we'll be back at it again tomorrow, guys, and hopefully see this thing fly. But we will await SpaceX to give us confirmation on the next launch date when they're going to reschedule everything for. So, with that being said, I think I'm going to close this stream out. Yeah, just looking at the SpaceX Twitter here. Staying down for today's flight test due to weather. But we will readily await SpaceX to tweet out the next possible launch date, and I will be back with you guys again then. So, without further ado, I'm going to leave you guys to it. I hope you all have a good one. I'm still trying to figure out my outro. I don't know how I want to end these out. It seems like everyone has like catchphrases and stuff, but I do not have a catchphrase yet. So, with that being said, I will leave you all to it, and I will see you all next time for what will hopefully be, third time the charm, Starship Flight 10 going into orbit and successful re-entry. Fingers crossed. We'll see you guys next time.